so we're going to go ahead and get started. Sorry I didn't give you the 2-minute warning, but I got a little busy. So, first things first, Pat, or all of us stand and let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Pat, please do the roll.
Ellen Anderson.
Here.
Scott Hardeman.
Here.
Bruce Horn.
Oh, here.
Monica Hassel.
Here.
Mary Kay Jacobson. Here. Greg Jones.
Here.
Barbara Starr.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, there are 7 board members present, therefore we do have a quorum.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. We have a couple guests with us today. We have Mayor Foster. Joe, I saw you. Joe Sherrill, and Colleen, I don't know if I saw you come in.
She's not back yet.
She's not back yet. Okay. So, Mayor Foster, it's all yours.
Thanks for having me. It's been a couple of
See,
times.
listen to the applause already.
Oh, thank you, I really appreciate that. Pat asks me every month that I'm coming, and I tell her yes, and then I haven't. So sorry for lying to you there. My bad on that one, but it's good to be back. Just wanted to be real brief, give a little construction update on the things we've got going on. Our archives, if you need anything out of the archives facility, that is all but done. They're on the punch list, so maybe another month or so we'll be back into the archives, and you can still get access to any document you need by going through the library, but that construction project is finally coming to an end. Courthouse, it'll end one of these days. I think late summer we're probably going to be in it. The repair stage is all but complete. They're looking to leave next week on the first group, and they have done an absolute fabulous job. The first group, very, very impressed with, and the renovation group is working now, and hopefully that'll be a little quicker and smoother, and we'll get progress on that, and I think it'll be late summer with completion. And our War Memorial Park, you may have seen a lot of activity over there. Year before last, I'd asked the commission to approve a plan and a layout. I didn't ask them for any money for it. And Downtown Crossville Inc. has just been fabulous in getting that plan brought to life. We're going to have a big eagle there, an archway, and it's kind of catty-cornered across from the courthouse. If you've never been to it, it's fabulous. But that is really going underway. And I know there's always interest in the building codes and permits out here. After our first full year of doing that, I wanted to let you know we did 424 permits and about $475,000. So it's paying for itself. And so hopefully you've seen the difference in the service out here, but if not, call Joe. Let him know. Any questions? Anybody have any questions? Be nice to me, Nico.
Well, this isn't going to be.
That's okay, I can.
Nico Sergio, I've been a member since April of 2005. If you've looked at the non-billable properties here, I don't know if this is a monthly figure or not, but $883,937. Are you working together with the community club to try to sell these lots, or can you put more effort into selling lots? Because the community club, we need the money, we really do. Just like the county, but I mean,
yeah,
can we do something to be more cooperative?
Actually, that was pretty good.
Jason, is this yearly or monthly?
Monthly.
883,000?
That's an annual.
Report is the annual report, but we produce it monthly.
Yep, okay, this is a yearly figure.
Yeah.
Okay,
But we update it. and produce
thank
it
you.
monthly.
Yep.
We do try to sell the ones that the county actually owns. There's just not much of a market for most of those. They're lots no one wants. That's how the county ended up with them. Old membership lots, a lot of them don't have a real road or utilities or anything on most of them. There's another set of lots that the county is still processing. Thankfully, we had an agreement with the board out here to start that back up again, and there's a lot of those. There's significance, and I'm sure that's part of that total as well. We can only process, maybe 400 a year. It's a full-time person already that the county has put in there. We have significant money that goes into title searches and all these things to find. It's hard to take someone's property in Tennessee, and it should be. So we do have a dedicated person full-time going through them. It's just there's only so much one person can do. And the county loses money. This is not a money maker for the county. We lose money on these lots even when we sell them. And so it's hard to say I would want to hire 5 people to process them quicker when we're just losing money on them. But we are pushing them now, and they're trying to catch up. But there's a limit what we can do.
Well, do you have an agreement with Tom Anderson?
No.
By lot? Is there, what that has?
I don't have an agreement with Tom Anderson.
Well, let me speak to that a little bit. Next month, so we're in the process of trying to get this nailed down. Next month, we'll be bringing forward, hopefully, an agreement that, if you remember in December when we talked about the agreement we had with Tom in terms of developing that whole area, we're trying to extend that agreement now into the purchase and the sale of county lots, that we would buy them on his behalf and then turn around and sell them to them. Those will take care, Nico, we'll have the numbers for you next month. We don't have it all together yet, but that'll take care of quite a few of these county lots that you're talking about, if we move that way.
Ted Landers. Just a question. Someone has told me that large acreage right off of 40, kind of beside the McDonald's, like 440 acres or something, sold a few months ago. Do you know anything about that and what plans there might be for it if that's the case?
I don't believe it has sold, that we've not heard anything about it selling. So I don't think that's accurate, but I will check. I know most of the retail and type things that are looking to come are either on the Genesis exit or the 127 North exit, because those are the main thoroughfares of traffic. There's a lot out here too, but 127 North is crazy. And obviously Buc-ee's, it brings in millions of people a year. So those are the 2 higher target areas right now. I do know that the owner's actively trying to find someone to buy it though.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a different realtor that has it listed.
Yes.
now. And it looks like beehives.
Barb, can you speak into your microphone, please?
I said it. It's a new realtor that has come in there, and it also looks like they've placed a lot of beehives in boxes.
Because it's for farming.
Okay.
Anybody else? I'll talk to you about that. All right, thanks.
Okay. Joe, do you have anything? Come on up.
Good morning, Joe Sherrill, 6th District. I wanted to just kind of let you know, you may be seeing some discussions in the paper about road committees. The Environmental Committee, of which I'm on, run by David Gibson, has created a subcommittee, and I'm chairing that for the discussions of roads in the county, so you may be seeing some information on that. And the whole goal is to try to work with Stanley and get them more money and implement a good plan. So Stanley's already been working with Alan to get a study at play, and that's going to be feeding into this whole process, but I did want to make that known. And tit for tat, in case you got any questions, call Alan.
It's always the worst to be or it's always best to be the last speaker. So just surprised you didn't put up your phone number. Okay. Across the board, we are quickly approaching the time where members start thinking about spring projects for their property. Please remember, if you do not get the required approval for your projects, that you run the risk of being fined and even required to remove what you have done. The best way to avoid these undesired outcomes is for you to go to the Architectural Control Office, the ACO, so you can be advised of what forms and approvals are needed for your project. The staff will also help you to make sure that you will have the necessary documentation you will need to secure your approval. If you do not receive approval of your project or a notice of fine, the ACO staff can help you with that. Understand why you received the notice and what actions you may take to appeal a fine or to appeal a decision of the ACC. Finally, when you receive a notification from the ACO, it is important not to ignore it. If you do not act on the notification, there will almost certainly be follow-up notifications informing you of fines as well as actions you will need to take that will help you avoid additional fines or actions up to and including foreclosure of the property. In summary, ask about what approvals you need prior to starting the outdoor projects. If your project is disapproved, do not ignore this. Do come to the ACO so you will understand why the project was disapproved and if you have a legitimate basis for an appeal. And if you get a notification from the ACO, do not ignore it. Contact the ACO to understand your options and what needs to be done. We're talking about this in here because we're starting to see a rash of these. And I'm encouraging everyone, both home and here, if you're going to do something outside, get the approval see the ACO so you know what you're going to need to get the approval before you walk in there, because if you get denied, then a whole bunch of other things happen. And we've had a number of residents ignoring notifications that they get. And you do that at your own peril, because fines will start. And they're not monthly fines, they're not weekly fines, they're daily fines. So please, 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 if you're contemplating doing something to your outside in particular, please get with the ACO office. Financial reporting. In February, which is now, we overhauled the look and the layout of the published financial reports to the members. This is in response to a desire to make the reports more user-friendly to the membership and reduce some of the confusion in presenting the data. Among the changes, summary financial results. There is now a narrative along with the numbers to provide some context for the line items that are presented. Overall revenue, cost of goods sold, operating expenses including payroll, and net income. Balance sheets, the POA and amenities have now been split out into a format that's easier to read. Graphs now show some yearly sales comparisons and making for easier reading. Income statement variances by department are included with context. The major capital projects report is now hopefully easier to read for you. And the regular capital summary is now clear and concise. So hopefully you've got a chance to see the new reporting. Thanks to Jason, he did most of the work here in terms of getting it straightened out based on his experience. And it's really, really, I think, a much better report for all of you to be able to understand fiscally where we are. We anticipate closing the books on 2024 and beginning the annual audit by the middle of March. We are projecting that we will be finishing 2024 with a close to break-even result for the POA operational expenses with a slight negative variance to budgeted expectations. Strategic planning update. A strategic planning workshop is scheduled for March 10th to 12th. The senior management team, along with members of the Strategic Planning Committee and the board liaisons, will work to establish prioritized initiatives for the strategic plan. Members who would like to share comments regarding the strategic planning initiative can reach out by sending email messages to the team at strategicplanning@fairfieldglade.cc. Information concerning the strategic planning team is also available on the community website, www.fairfieldglade.cc. Those of you that are interested in seeing what that process looks like, we had Bill Booth, who's doing the facilitation for that session here yesterday. It's on film with the workshop. I would encourage you to see it if you have a desire to understand a little bit better of what's going on with that whole process. Druid Hills Golf Project. The demolition of Druid Hills Clubhouse, this is going to be the most apparent thing I'm going to say all day, I think, is now completed. If you haven't been by there, it's gone. There were meetings held on Monday and Tuesday, February 17th and 18th of 2025. The attendees included our architect, Vic Jones, representatives from Johnson and Galen, J&G, our general contractors. Representatives from Fairfield Glade included our COO, general manager, a CFO, director of public works, project managers, director of golf, food and beverage director, and a board member. The purpose of these meetings was to perform a final review of the scope of the project and look at some very preliminary cost projections. Once the final review of the budget projections is reviewed and finalized, we will give a complete report out to the membership on the status of the project, which will include a high-level timeline and a project cost projection. We expect that we will be sharing that information in the next few weeks, not months. We hope to have all that together for you the next couple weeks. Members who would like to share additional comments regarding the Druid Hills Golf Club project can do so by sending an email to the steering committee at druidhillsprojects@fairfieldglade.cc. Firehouse Number 1, Emergency Management Services Building. The architecture and engineering contractor has provided a preliminary timeline of upcoming activities. Design work needed to send invitations to general contractors to bid on the work has been pushed to February 23rd. I don't know, did that happen?
I haven't had an update.
Okay, all right, so we'll get an update, but that's when it was supposed to happen, so we'll see. Food and beverage news. To keep members engaged this winter, the Food and Beverage Department is offering various programming to appeal to all membership demographics. Starting in March, Stonehenge Grill is excited to provide entertainment twice a month. Our first entertainer is DJ Garrison on Tuesday, March 11th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The new snack bar menus will begin in mid-March. March 21st, bingo with musical twist, plus a salad and pizza buffet, $20 per person, includes tax. Tickets are available for purchase at the center and at Stonehenge Grill. And many other events are scheduled for this upcoming season, including Easter, Mother's Day, fish fries, and more. So the food and beverage group is getting a lot more events getting going, and please take advantage of all those. More detailed information, including dates, times, menus, and pricing, will be provided by the end of March. This is our February update from across the board. Okay. Treasurer's report.
Good morning. As Greg read from the across the board, we've got new formats and new information on the treasurer's report. And the architect of these changes has been Jason, as mentioned. And I'm going to turn it over to Jason to give the treasurer's report and a little more information for you on the packet that you have in hand.
Thank you, Bruce. On this page, we have POA and amenities and the sewer broken out separately. For POA and amenities, overall revenue for January was behind budget by approximately $24,000. Assessment revenue was slightly higher, but our amenity revenue fell by approximately $30,000. Food and beverage made up 30% play. This is all weather related, and as conditions improve, so should our amenity revenue. For the cost of goods sold, our cost of goods sold for January were slightly better than budget. With a variance of $6,000, it was anticipated that COGS would be approximately $78,000 for the month, and actuals were at $72,000. Golf operations are higher than budget by $1,000, and food and beverage are below by approximately $5,000. For operating expenses, including payroll, we had considerable savings in the general expenses. Payroll for the month was $930,000 against the estimate of $948,000. Repairs and maintenance were below budget by $115,000, which we think is also explained by timing of invoices. Overall, we are below budget guidelines by $85,000 for the month of January. Net income for POA amenities was ahead of schedule by $61,000. With the savings listed above and continued efforts to reduce expenses, while simultaneously raising revenue, we are anticipating falling right in line with 2025 budgeted expectations. Wastewater treatment, or sewer, overall revenue, or top line revenue for sewer came in below guidelines by approximately $24,000. The biggest variance was in tap fees, which was off by approximately $12,000. Operating expenses, including payroll, we had large variances were experienced positively for materials and supplies and repairs and maintenance. Total in the area of general expenses was a positive $26,000 for January 2025. Therefore, net income for sewer was in line with budgeted expectations. For 2025, January actuals, sewer reported $36,000 in net income against a budget of $34,000. Thank you.
Any questions?
Nico Sergio. Jason, would it be possible to put page numbers on the report? Absolutely. And then on the first page where you have these major titles, after the major title, could you put in parentheses like page, what page you're referring to? Sure. Or some reference to some of the items on at least what page it is or something? That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, we'll move on. There is no general manager's report. Bill is still dealing with a family situation, so there's no report from him today. Barbara.
Good morning. Wyndham timeshare visitors month to date is 1,263. Year to date, we've had 2,973 Wyndham timeshare visitors. As far as like revenue, the center has generated $13,244, which is like revenue of 33%. Racket sports, $2,686, 8%. Dartmoor and St. George are still closed, so 0. Golf, $255, only 1%, and food, $3,477, which is 4%, for a total of $19,662, for an average of 8%. Thank you.
Any questions? Go on ahead.
Just one quick one, and that would be, Jason, could you work your magic and look at this report? And if there's no changes needed, could we at least get it in the packet, please?
I'm sorry, I don't
Jason, you're going to have to speak into the mic.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question.
Well, the question is, Barbara's reading from some figures where there's a standard report. Her numbers, as I understand it, come from us. Okay, so could we look at them to be able to either give some texture behind them, or, you know, are they accurate, where are they coming from, whatever that might be? And if there's not going to be a change, could we at least get the report in the financial package? Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments there? Hearing none, we'll move to unfinished business. MK, I think you're up.
I'm reporting on the amenity reserve transfer policy that was posted since the last January board meeting. And we received only one comment that required no revision to the policy. Therefore, I would like to propose a motion that we move to approve the policy.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. It's passed. Moving into new business. We have a number of committee appointments. It's that time of year when we have to do, or get to do, I should say, a lot of these. The first one up with the Environmental Committee is really a mistake that was made. We thought, or the committee thought, that they were getting these are new people that came on in over the summer to replace members who dropped off. And the committee thought they were approving them for the whole time that they were going to be fulfilling that term. So it would have been multiple years in all those cases. We thought they were being only approved for just the end of the year. So we're going to tidy this up, and there's two members in particular, Don Eppelheimer and Sylvia Becker, who were in that situation. So this is really, they've been functioning on the committee now for about 4 months or so. So this is nothing really new. We're just extending them into the slots that they would have filled as they were to replace those committee members. So can I have a motion to name these two to the committee?
I move that Don Heppelheimer and Sylvia Becker be appointed to the Environmental Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those, what, Tom? Were you going to say something?
Could you also just tell us, as you go through these, who the board liaison is for these committees?
I am the board liaison for the environmental, okay? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Bruce, Lakes.
Lakes. There are 6 candidates for 3-year term to the Lakes Committee. Their names are Doran Edwards, Mervyn Brown, Mark Lesko, Robert Van Sickle, Maria Bella, and Kirk Smith. I move that these 6 be appointed to the Lakes Committee for a 3-year term each.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
For the benefit of the community, I am the liaison, board liaison for Lakes.
Okay. Trails Committee.
We have 3 3-year term openings and 1 opening to fill an unexpired term. For the 3-year terms, we have Denise Burchett, John Devine, and Dan Coates. And for the unfilled term, Bob Obahowski. I make a motion that all 4 of these be approved for membership on the Trails Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? And just for the record, Scott is the liaison. Typically, just so all of you know, whenever we present these committee members, it's usually the liaison making the presentation unless there is not one, okay? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right. I got to keep waiting on you, Monica, because it sounds like you're opposed to things and you're really not, okay? That's my fault, okay.
Yeah.
You weren't supposed to be that quick to agree with that.
She answered quickly. It's your fault.
My. Okay. Request for a dock on common property, 30 Hunterwood Court. The piece behind this is that the reason why that this comes to the board is the CNR say that anything that has to go across common ground or common land has to be approved by the board. So these typically come up when they come up in terms of this one has to be built over common land. All the docks on Glastonbury are fit into that category. So this is nothing really new. It's part of just what we do. So that's why it's coming up now. It's there's no controversy about it that we know of. Go ahead, Nico.
Nico Sergio. We have docks at the marina. We charge $950 a month, if I'm accurate or close to it. I was wondering if there's been any discussion that when we allow docks on community club property.
I'm going to stop you here. I'm going to stop you here. Please bring this up in member comments. It's got nothing to do with this motion. Okay?
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Please bring it up.
But then
in
if you
member-
approve it, we're not going to be discussing it.
No, you can talk about it in member comments, and I would wish you to do that because we're just talking about this one dock. We're not talking about all docks. We're not talking about all lakes. So just bring it up in member comments, okay? All right. Any other conversation on this particular dock policy? Okay. All those in favor?
We got a motion.
Yeah, do we have a motion? Yeah.
I motion that we approve the dock on common property at 30 Hunterwood Court.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Okay, purchase of the lot next to Druid Hills.
Just to give you a little background on this, there is, lot 138 is adjacent to the Druid Hills property, and in looking at running utilities and irrigation lines, in addition to making sure we had adequate parking space with expansion of parking lots once the clubhouse is approved, it was determined that purchase of this property would be advantageous to the project. The cost associated with the purchase will be included as part of the project costs and not a charge to the community club outside of the budget for the Druid Hills project. So therefore, I move we approve the purchase of lot 138 for $17,500 to be included in the Druid Hills project costs.
Is there a second?
I second.
I'm going to add a little bit more context to this because this goes all the way back. I see a member in the audience that will remember this lot. We actually tried to buy this lot several times because it's really, if you take a look, the lot we're talking about, if you're facing where the old clubhouse was, it was to the left. It's the first lot to the left. It kind of goes up by number 9 Green. Well, when we get that clubhouse up there, it's going to be very, very, very busy. And we approached the owner, 4 or 5 years ago, to actually try to buy the lot. He was not interested in selling. We got a hold of some of the family members, but Dad said he wasn't interested in selling again. And finally, now they're saying they want to sell. This is really a lot that should be included in this because it's just not going to be a lot that people are going to want to build on or anything like that. So we are taking the action today to buy that lot, and it will, as MK said, it'll help us with where we're going to put the utilities. It will also help us where we're going to have to put some of the irrigation stuff. And another big piece is it means that we can put that construction trailer up and not have to move it multiple times during construction, which is a costly thing. So that's the reason why it's coming up. So any discussion? All right. If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, we did get a second. Bruce seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Comments from the floor. I bet we got at least one. Maybe two.
Good morning, Bruce Cox. I want to address the issue of the Major Capital Projects Committee. The Major Capital Projects Committee was a board advisory committee whose charter was approved by the board May 23rd, 2019. The basic purpose of the committee, as stated in the charter, which is still on the website, by the way, is to coordinate with the stakeholders and identify the scope of the project, what the needs are, and determine, recommend the most cost-efficient and effective way to complete a high-quality project on time and within budget. The committee members throughout the past 6 years have included Fairfield Glade Community Club members who are licensed professional engineers and construction professionals with worldwide construction experience. They volunteered their time and expertise to fulfill the purpose of the committee. The committee met monthly and reviewed each project assigned to them by the board. Each project had an assigned leader, but during the monthly review process, the synergy of this experienced group provided thorough reviews and planning as projects progressed. I was the board liaison to that committee since inception until I left the board last September. Scott Hardemo was appointed as one of the liaisons after my departure. I had heard that the committee had been disbanded, so I sent Scott an email in January asking about the status of the MCPC. I want to read the email exchange for the record. Scott replied, "The MCPC disbanded at the beginning of the year. Projects are now being managed through the project management team with a steering committee providing an advisory role. Expectations is steering committee will include at least one member with background comparable to the prior MCPC members." My response to Scott, and I copied the board, Bill Ward and Jason Lambert. As you might guess, I believe this is a huge mistake. The number one focus of the board is its fiduciary responsibility to the members. The two board committees that advised the board over the last 6 years to ensure the board had all the information needed to make informed financial decisions were the Financial Advisory Committee and the Major Capital Projects Committee. You have now removed a critical source of input for making financial decisions. The MCPC has saved hundreds of thousands of dollars during its tenure by creating competitive bidding for not only construction but architectural and engineering design as well. Prior to the MCPC, there was single sourcing for all architectural and engineering design and very few contractors bidding on projects. Today, we have several qualified architectural and engineering vendors and numerous qualified contractors bidding on projects thanks to the MCPC. In addition, the MCPC provided expert oversight during the architectural and engineering process and the construction to ensure quality design and project completion. One of my favorite quotes is from Winston Churchill. Quote, "Those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it," unquote. You are on that path. That's the end of my email. I want to be clear. I have the utmost respect for the maintenance staff, the project management team, and their capabilities. The maintenance staff has worked very well with the MCPC to ensure the projects being completed were done in such a way that they would be easy to maintain. This input has been invaluable. I strongly believe that the synergy of the members of the MCPC and the Fairfield Glade Community Club staff has provided the best possible project results from both a quality and financial perspective over the last 6 years. I want to remind the members that with the input from the Financial Advisory Committee and the Major Capital Projects Committee, the boards of directors since 2018 have been able to improve the financial position of the club from having $2.7 million of debt and $0 of reserves in 2018 to $0 of debt and $6.5 million of reserves in 2024, establishing a strong financial position for the future. For the board, I'd ask, since this committee was discussed and approved in a public board meeting May 23rd, 2019, I believe in order to disband this significantly impactful committee, the disbanding of this committee and the strategy to complete the 10-year, $70.5 million capital plan without this committee should be presented and voted on in public as well. Thank you.
Do you want to respond to that?
So Bruce, I hear what you're saying, and like I responded to you, the value of our community members that have that construction and engineering that have helped with some of those things, those benefits. We don't want to lose that, and we have no intent of losing that. What we're looking at with this model is the accountability of the employee base and the responsibility of the employee base.
And Scott, I appreciate that. I just get concerned about, we have some vital resources in this community, free of charge, that are willing to spend their time on an advisory committee. I'm not trying to take away anything from staff responsibilities whatsoever. But I would ask you to reconsider having, because when you sit in those monthly meetings and listen, for instance, Kevin would present what we were doing with the fire and EMS building design. There were 4 other people in that room who would give him feedback and input and help him direct to get to the right answer. You don't have that synergy when you do it one member at a time.
I agree that there's value in that conversation, but there were downsides to it that we've talked about as a board as well. Not having the employee accountability and the amount of communication that was going on between MCPC and building on Bill Ward's experience with other clubs.
Well,
so I understand what you're saying, but we've discussed it as a board.
Sam and Greg Reppert attended those meetings for the last 2.5 years. They were well aware of all the projects, well aware of what we were doing, and as I said in my piece there.
And they both had their input on the go-forward model.
Well, and I would, for me, I don't understand the going forward model. And so I still believe that if you're going to disband a board committee that was voted on in public, you should disband it in public, and you should present to this community how you intend to replace that valuable committee of the last 6 years and what that structure looks like.
We'll discuss it.
Just so, I'm going to add a couple comments in here, but I think we're at a point where we will discuss it as a board. A couple things did not exist until last year. Number one, we did not have project managers at full-time employees. That was 2 new positions that were added, I want to say late spring last year or early summer. I can't give you the exact date off my head, but it's sometime around there. The second thing is, as a practical matter, the 2 largest projects that we have going on right now, Druid and where we're going with racket sports and the EMS area. We haven't formed the committee for the racket sports one, but for both the EMS and the Druid Hills projects, the people that were MCPC folks are still sitting and contributing on those committees. We did not ever intend, and I think, Scott, you said it, that we were going to lose that expertise. What the idea was, all right, and it's fair conversation, Bruce, for us to talk about this, and I get your point about voting on it. The idea is that we would have someone in a project management office that would be watching those projects on a day-to-day basis, and that would be accountable for making sure that we get the information that we need from the whole committee and the whole people and all the people working on it. So that was the intent. You know, let's face it, even us board members, we're all retired. This is not our full-time job. We spend a lot of time on this, and Bruce, I know how much time you spend on it. So, but there's times when you need a daily contact, and that doesn't always exist in a retirement community. And we have to be mindful of that, because these projects, Druid, and I'll speak to that one because I'm much more familiar to it, it's a huge thing. And I think everybody sitting in this room recognizes that. And if we don't have a day-to-day person watching over that and looking at that type of thing, we can get off track pretty easily. And that's no reflection on any board members that sit on that steering committee, any SMTs that sit on that committee, our general manager, or even the MCPC representative who's still there. But the fact of the matter is, when people need to go hold of people about things on a project that move, you need to have somebody there that's willing and able to take care of that on a day-to-day basis. So that was the intent. But we will talk about it. And I do think that your comment about the public vote, I get that. Okay? All right? Thank you. I knew there'd be a second one.
I just wanted to clarify something. Bruce, when you were up here, did you introduce yourself? I didn't think you did. You did? I apologize. Yeah. Thank you. Nico Sergio. My question, concern, comments today are about we have docks in Fairfield Glade that come off of common property and then go out into the lake. Now, we charge $950 if you want to get a dock at the marina. What I want to question, I want to know why we're not charging a yearly fee once we give approval to build a dock on community club property or on common property. When myself and my wife, we bought a property here in 2005. We were told, we went around, looked at houses on the lake, and I do have lake frontage on Lake Dartmoor. And we also looked at houses that were not on the lake. So the realtor told us, wait right up front. If you want to live on Lake Dartmoor and have lake frontage, you got to realize that this house is going to be $125,000 more just so you can have lake frontage. And depending upon the other lakes, it's an asset. So what I question is, if we're allowing people to build a dock that the entrance to that dock is on community club property or common property, that we should get a fee from them for that value, because we're adding a lot of value. When those people go to sell that house, they're saying that they have lake frontage, which they do not, and they have increased the value of their house by maybe $85,000 to $125,000, maybe $150,000. So I think we should start charging. On Lake Dartmoor, I know of at least 3 docks that are on common property. On Lake Glastonbury, the last count I did, there were over 25. So I don't know about the other lakes, but I think that would be fair and equitable to the community club members to get funds that we're saving them by their not having to rent a dock from us. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Go on.
Tom Ratcliffe. A couple of things. First, Bruce, I appreciate you bringing it up about MCPC and that group. I would just take and just classify this and just throw it out. This is all about transparency, again, okay? It disappeared until it was brought up. So I just want to remind the board of that. I have a suggestion. We've been working with the developer and coming up with improvements that or policies, procedures, and so forth that will help us and help the developer down the road. And I recognize that, and I appreciate the board's effort. I was wondering if you could consider in these agreements, much like other communities do when big residential developments are proposed, they either quote unquote require or ask for improvements by the developer. Open space development, trails could be an example. It's all part of the negotiations. And I'd ask the board to consider that, especially as it comes to some of the walking trails and so forth, where the properties are. I wasn't here a long time ago, but you know, the north side has walking trails galore. And I assume it was put in by the developers. I live on the south side. No, well, okay. Then maybe we have to look at it. I'm incorrect. Thank you for.
So Tom, can I answer the trails thing?
Yep.
The Trails Committee works on a regular basis with Fairfield Glade Homes as their, and the developer as they're putting in developments on whether they have to move trails, new trails, old trails. So there's constant work and communication between the developer and Fairfield Homes and the Trails Committee.
Thank you for the clarification. I just asked you to think about it. And it's open space too. And as I started to say, I'm on the south side of town. Trails are virtually non-existent on that side.
There's one being developed on there, right? Camp Branch?
Yeah, I do. Thank you.
Yeah.
The next thing is, Greg, we haven't heard lately a status update on the Wyndham properties that they brought to us that we have to take back.
Yeah, I gave one last month. I will tell you, and again, this is no secret, we've talked about it here. We've taken back all but 4. Those 4 are the ones that were used for construction, I call it dumping, but at least anyway, things were put in there. We purposely did not take those 4 back because the conversation we've had with Wyndham is we don't want them back until they're cleaned up to our satisfaction. Everything else we have, there's still a lot of work to do with that because we got to take a look at, now that we've got it, what does that entail? And that's going to take us some time to walk all that down and figure it out. I mean, you're talking about 200 properties. And they're all different. They're all over the Fairfield Glade. And we need to take a look at what those really are. Okay? That's where we are.
And Kenneth, this take back has been because of the bylaws, which
or because of the CNRs.
CNRs, sorry. Of which, honestly, I'm not an attorney. I can't find where that is.
Right at the very beginning, and this was anticipated since 1998 when those were written, that we were to take back that common property. What happened is Wyndham held on to it for, do the math, 27 years. And I know that there's been comments made to me, emails saying, well, why don't you go after Wyndham? Because if you go after Wyndham, they paid the taxes on all that property for 27 years. And we can go after them, but better be ready because they could very easily turn around and say, you got to reimburse us for all those taxes. So just be careful what you wish for. You may get an unintended consequence.
The point directed to Kenneth is, Kenneth, your experience with other HOAs and these agreements, why would a clause even be put in there for properties like this? What would be what's the rationale behind this clause that we have to take back properties?
Yeah, thanks. That's common in just about all declarations. All of these are common area properties. And once development nears completion, all those properties are granted or conveyed to the POA. And it's very common. That's just, somebody has to take care of those properties ultimately because they're not for private ownership. And that's one of the reasons the association exists, is to take care of these properties.
But why wouldn't it have happened at the time the club was formed? You know, when all the other properties were being transferred back?
It's for one thing, nobody wants these properties.
Okay.
I mean, they're sort of a liability for the most part. I don't know where all of them. I've not gone out and looked at maps, you know, as to where all of them exist. The other thing is it's just in the backwaters of development. I mean, it's not a high priority. These are not things that come to the forefront of everybody's thoughts, and it's usually the last thing to be taken care of. I've got 8 or 9 developments right now that I represent that are fully completed. We've been working on these for 11, 12 years, 13 years. One's 9 years old, and they're just now getting around to conveying they're called strips and gores, by the way. That's just the fancy legal term for it, but they're just getting around to conveying the excuse me, the strips and gores of common area to the association so the developer can be finished. So it's not uncommon at all. It's very normal.
Is it safe to say it's kind of also loose ends, you know, properties
Sure, you
they
could
were
put,
forgetting to
yes, sir,
convey and so forth?
You could put a lot of this in the loose end category, just cleaning up.
So similar to the driving range at Druid Hills, where we had to take it back and it should have been conveyed.
Okay. Jeannie.
Jean Guide. I'm a little upset about this MCPC issue because a few meetings back, I asked Bill Ward why we were getting project managers. And his answer, I believe, I'm going to have to go back and check, was it makes good business sense. And I believe he also said this wasn't going to affect the MCPC, because I happen to think that's a great committee. And I'd also like to respond to your comment about needing someone that would come and explain things to you that are going on. I don't see how still having the MCPC committee would affect that. You could still have a project manager coming to you. So I just want to kind of express I am upset about this because I feel like I was told this was not really going to happen. Maybe not in so many words, but that was the impression I got. So I hope you reconsider that and keep the MCPC. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member comments?
Ted Landers. I have 2 things. The first is Frontier is in here, and they're putting in fiber optic cable, and in the areas where the utilities are all buried, they're actually having to bury that fiber optic cable. And I live on Amesbury Court. Amesbury Court is a total of 23 homes with it and the Amesbury Circle. And in there, Frontier has caused significant damage to the properties, both personal property, our lots, as well as association property. So between 22 and 23 Amesbury Court, which is outside my front yard, they went diagonal or through under the road. And when they did that, their machine popped up the road, and they had to go over there with it's a gas-powered compactor thing that's very heavy. It takes 2 people to lift in order to pound the pavement back down so it wasn't lifted up at the edges. Where the runoff is for culverts off of the 9th fairway, it runs behind the homes, across the street, and under it. And they have damaged 2 of the culverts that are on the Stonehenge #1 side of the street, and by going underneath it to drive the cable. One of them is a property that the association did not want to claim responsibility for, which handles a tremendous amount of water between my house, which is 22, and my neighbor's 24 Amesbury Court. And as they went under, this is a hydraulic device, and it do under it. It's not a boring machine, and this has caused $4,200 of damage to the culvert that we had just put in 2 years ago. They came out to inspect it 2 days ago, and they said
Who's
that
they?
they would be,
I mean, just the company.
yeah, it's Ronnie from ITG came out, and he said that that damage was pre-existing and their company didn't cause it. Now, we've gone and talked to an attorney, and the attorney said that, you know, this is too small a claim to be able to go after them. You'd spend more money than you'd get back. But I really think this is bad to do, and I know we're not the only ones, because I've talked with Bruce, and he said that he's had a lot of complaints. Is there something that the association can do to kind of spearhead this? Because it's not just private property. I mean, it's...
Well, let's talk about that from a couple of perspectives. And I've gotten a few phone calls about these too, but I hadn't heard about this one. You start out with there are easements on everybody's property. And I know up in my area, there's flags all over the place, and they've already started doing the digging. And there's little you can do about that because those are utility easements, and Frontier is a utility. And a lot of people, self-included sometimes, we forget about that. And so there were several people who had landscaping impacted and things like that. There's little you can do about that because, quite honestly, we don't own that property, and neither do you. That is an easement for a utility, as long as the easement, or as long as the utility is going through the right process to use it for their stated goal, then they have the right. Now, other things like non-repair, that's a different story, okay? Like if they did some damage with the road, if they did damage to a culvert, that's stuff that probably should and could be looked at. But Bruce, do you want to talk about this at all? I know you've been involved with some of it.
Well, before we get too far, just for anybody who has issues with Frontier, we've really had to do a lot of digging to get the phone numbers. If you call Frontier directly, you'll be on the line for an hour to get to somebody back in the right department and go through like 5 or 6 people. And then those people take you and give you a claim number, but they aren't passing the claim number along to the person who actually is responsible for this area. So the Frontier claim number for everybody at home to call is 888-497-9810. And that's where you list your claim, and they give you a claim ID number. Now, they're supposed to pass that along to the Frontier employee who's responsible for this area. His name is Tanner Asher. Tanner Asher. And his phone number is 615-924-6478. When I talked with Tanner, which was a week after I did the claim number, he didn't know about my claim number nor my next door neighbor's claim number because they hadn't forwarded it to him. So I provided those claim numbers, and then he called the subcontractor, which is ITG, and Ronnie was the person who came out. And Ronnie is 813-352-0901. So these are really important numbers to avoid a lot of frustration on your part. Not that they're going to claim responsibility for stuff, but all right, I'm going to get out so you can go ahead. And then when you're done, I have a second thing on a different subject.
So there's actually 2 subcontractors. One's out of Kentucky and then ITG. And we have absolutely zero oversight or authority when it comes to Frontier subcontractors. The oversight they have is with the Department of Public Utilities. As long as they stay within the utility easements, they can do whatever. Most companies do the right thing and restore the property as they found it, but they're not required to by any means. It's horrible, and making a claim is very difficult with Frontier. Ben Lomond is doing work in Fairfield Glade as well, but they're hanging their conduits above ground from pole to pole and leasing the poles from VEC. So right now they're working on a federal grant that expires the end of August. They're trying to get all of the conduit in that they possibly can. The grant was issued because during COVID, not enough children that were forced to stay home had high-speed internet. So the grants are to provide high-speed internet with as many folks as possible. And Frontier, Ben Lomond, and Comcast are taking advantage of the grant. So that's where we stand. We just have no oversight at all. I can't call them up and instruct them to do anything. So.
Up, up. Come up. We're going to talk, everybody's got to hear it.
Sorry, Tom Radcliffe. Could you just, for the members, Bruce, overall, for like homeowners, explain who's responsible for maintaining the easements?
So the property is actually owned by the homeowner. Just because there's a utility easement there doesn't mean you don't own the property. You own the property, but there's restrictions because it's in the utility easement. A utility easement simply provides authority or permission for a utility to use the property. You still, as a owner, the homeowner, still have to maintain that property.
Well, let,
Nico Sergio again. The county owns the roads, not all of them, but most of them. So some of this, any of this being done in the road right away? And could you explain the difference kind of between the road right away and an easement? Thank you.
So the road right away is, in fact, if it's been an accepted road by the county, owned by the county. And there's utility easements under the roads as well. Off the limits of the pavement, 10 feet, 15 feet, depending on what road, there is a utility easement on both sides of the road, Nico. So that's where the Frontier subcontractors are primarily doing the work. They have to cross the road on occasion with the trunk line, but for the most part, it's through the yards.
So on the construction easement, you said it was 10 or 15 feet. Is that from the center of the road or from the edge of the road?
It's usually 25 feet from the center of the road.
so what he said was it's usually 25 feet from the center of the road.
Okay. So if they're beyond 25 feet, then I have a better reason to complain.
That's something you're going to have to talk about with an attorney. We can't say that for sure.
Okay. No, I'm just asking the question because I believe, I didn't measure it, but I believe
Well,
they're
what I
beyond
want to make sure
25
is you
feet.
get the right answer, not
I
just that
understand.
answer.
The county has, I think it's in the highway department, they have a list of all county roads. And it's a spreadsheet, and it also lists the width of the road right away. So like on Peavine, I think it's something like 200 or 300 feet. And then your primary roads are maybe 60 or 70 feet. And in front of your house, it may be only 40 feet. But you can get that from the county, the road right away distance.
And then at the last meeting, I had asked about some motions that I thought had not been made. And I was told that you were going to talk with Bill Ward and then get back to me about that. I haven't heard it. One of the motions is about the complete demolition of the existing restroom and building of new restrooms on Stonehenge number 5.
And I know Bill's looked at that, but I cannot say what he found out because he's not here.
And you're going to find out about the replacement of the inadequate wood support beams, which were replaced with steel beams for the purchase and installation. I haven't seen a motion for that.
And I saw, and again, I'm sorry, Bill is not here. We typically talk about these things hold on one second. We typically talk about these things on the Thursday or Friday before the board, and we didn't get a chance to do that this week, or this month. So some of that, Ted, I know he's got some answers, but he's not here.
Okay. And then the Stonehenge grill work with.
What's that? Yeah.
And then the Stonehenge grill work with the new commercial dishwasher, their tear down of the wall, the mold mitigation, the construction of a new wall, the replacement of the damaged floor in the serving area, new carpeting and painting of the dining room. That was all done in December. There's been no motion for any of that.
No, that's not true. I believe there was a motion for that, and we'll go back and check that.
Okay.
I know we voted on that here.
Okay.
Okay? But I will check that one.
Greg, I can address two of those items
Okay.
for him. The restroom on Stonehenge was included in one of the reserve study packages. It was one of the line items in that package. That's why there was no independent motion for that restroom. It was one of the projects.
Which would make sense.
And you all, and we made that
Yeah.
motion and voted on it.
Exactly.
The other one was,
Bocce, sport
The
beach.
bocce.
yeah, the bocce court. Sam talked about that and came up and said that they were going to be able to make that revision all within the authorization
That's
that
right.
was already voted on.
Yes, and that I do know happened, but I want to make sure that we close the loop with Bill and that he is the one that says that as well. Because if you take a look at the capital projects, bocce ball courts are within budget.
Right, and Sam said that. Sam said they could make that revision within the budget that was approved. That's why there was no, I'm just saying
Yeah,
that's why there
no,
was no
right.
motion.
That's why there is no motion.
Thanks, Bruce.
I think in terms of transparency, the board should be reporting what these additional costs are. So for us, so.
They're
I mean,
not
you-
additional costs, Ted.
Well.
They didn't add anything to the budget.
Okay, they're within the budgeted amount for the project, I get that. But it's still, that project was quote-unquote done and ready to open, and then it was deemed that it wasn't safe because of the wood posts. And so there was an extra cost, and
Be careful about extra cost. It was in the budget.
It was in the budget, but it wasn't extra cost. I understand what you're saying, Ted.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I
and I
don't
thought
want
we had
people walking out of
conversation
here thinking that we went over budget and didn't tell the membership. That didn't
no,
happen.
it was an additional cost than what was, I mean, I understand you have budgeted amounts and you come in under budget, you come in over budget, I get that. But in this case, the project was done, and then you went back and did something more to it.
Right.
So I think that ought to be, from a sense of clarity, it should be provided. And his comment that it was in a capital expenditure thing, and therefore you don't need to approve a budget, I disagree with.
No, well, let's be careful about that too, because the reserve projects are all listed at the beginning of every year. Once they come out and those are approved, we don't come back for each one of the reserve projects. They're approved and they move on.
Okay, so the reserve project for the EMS building, you have
That's not a
since-
reserve project.
I'm sorry?
That's a regular capital project. That's a major project.
Okay. All right. I'm just one of these people that think that there ought to be better transparency about some of this stuff. So, thank you.
Go on ahead.
So just a question. Yesterday's, when you gave us the tentative agenda for this meeting, you had two items on it, the budget carryovers and the transfer of money from the operating reserve to the capital reserve. Didn't make it here, and I'm curious as
And
to why.
we pulled those because we're not ready to talk about them. There's still more work to do. Okay? Any other member comments? MK, I think you're up then.
Okay, as I told you last month, one of the things I'm doing is the board liaison to the lot committee is doing some cleanup in the policies and also writing policies from guidance that was developed 2 years ago. Last month, we posted the veteran, refund of veteran lot purchase policy, and I appreciate all the comments that people sent in the first few days that the policy was up. It became very apparent that the language was not clear in the policy, so we pulled it. And I am bringing today a cleaned up version. It's a lot tighter. Some of the key points to it is the offer for a refund is a one-time offer, not a multiple offer. It's the refund of the initial sales price that the veteran would pay for the lot. That's excluding closing costs. The amenity reserve fee is not included in that refund. And it applies only to those club-owned A lots, of which there are 296 in the inventory right now. So this policy will be posted, and again, I appreciate everyone's comments. I keep a log of those, and we look at the comments as far as if the policy needs any revisions or not. So that one will be posted today. I'm also bringing forth the voluntary lot transfer policy, which was originally approved in August 26, 2021. Again, this is a language cleanup of this policy. The policy that will be posted on the website will have areas highlighted in yellow to show you what's being changed. One of the things in there is identifying that all tier billing of lot categories are involved in this voluntary lot transfer program. In other words, people can return their lots to the club. The other thing that we added was that the club, as part of one of the rationale, the club prefers to take ownership of the properties in lieu of having them returned to the county, Nico, as you pointed out today, so that once it goes to the county, it takes us at least 6 years to get clear title. So if the club takes it back, we get clear title and can get that property back out on the market so that it can be a revenue generating property. That's our intention. The other thing we deleted is that the member account must be at least 2 years delinquent. We didn't feel that that was a good business practice, that we should allow people, when they are experiencing financial hardship, to cut losses and save both sides, the club and the member, additional fines for doing that. So this policy will also be posted on the website. And again, as I said, I welcome all of your comments, and I keep them in a spreadsheet so that we can see everything that everybody sends. So these will be posted, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Okay. Any other board member comments? All right. Hearing none. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you all for coming,
Here's how are you?
and we'll see you next month.
I will. I know. He didn't get to.
Ooh, I get tongue-tied about this. I hope it made no sense. Yes. Yes.